We almost don't need a sermon today. These passages we've just heard are some of Scripture's greatest hits, and they point to a reality that is almost too strange, almost too good. We sometimes call it the upside-down kingdom. First, we have an incredible exchange from the prophet Micah. God is upset with Israel's wandering ways. What have I done to forfeit your fidelity? God asks. Didn't I bring you out of slavery in Egypt? Didn't I send Moses and Aaron and Miriam to lead you through the desert? And the penitent seems to hear it. What can I do? What can I give in exchange for these mercies? Should I offer immaculate rituals? Sacrifice 1,000 rams, loose barrel after barrel of precious oil. March my firstborn before you for the sins of my soul. And the response comes, oh, my child, nothing like that at all. You're thinking like a human being, negotiating with human beings. You know what I have asked of each of you, and you will find it deceptively simple-minded. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with me for all your days. My goodness, what a word. For squandering our earthly inheritance, we are assigned the meager penance of love and loving action. We hear this final verse quoted all the time, but if we bring fresh ears, it can practically knock us over. It can change our lives. From Matthew's Gospel, another chestnut, the chestnut. The teachings of Jesus boiled down like sap. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the merciful, the peacemakers. The bruised and the battered and the dispossessed will inherit the kingdom. Everyone crying out to God for solace will receive new strength, will survive and thrive and carry God's threadbare banner through streets of unlikely revelry. I recommend, if you haven't seen it, Martin Scorsese's 1988 film, The Last Temptation of Christ. I recognize that each of the last 2 times I've been here, I've recommended a slightly heretical film. But it's really good. The script and Willem Dafoe's performance as Jesus breathes life into these foundational verses that can seem dusty and dry. I always think of Dafoe's Sermon on the Mount scene whenever I hear the Beatitudes. It is rightly a little bit corny. It kind of feels like the inevitable scene in a music biopic where the tortured genius trips over whatever the inspiration was for their big hit, and it just sort of spontaneously comes out of their mouths. But we can forgive that little bit of writing because the scene perfectly captures the compassion and the love that is pouring out from Jesus' very being as he declares all of these staggering inversions. The mourning will be comforted, the hungry fed, the pure in heart not taken advantage of, but instead seeing God in all heavenly glory. The upside-down kingdom is so absurd that all but a few scoff at this naive country bumpkin in the scene. Love one another is good advice, maybe, but it's for another world, one of the onlookers says. You can tell that he is weighed down by the brutality of the Roman occupiers all around. But others who are there with Jesus catch the vision and want to know more. And so the movement is off and running. Finally, as the centerpiece of this spiritual, scriptural triptych, we have the strangest passage of all. The Apostle Paul, I imagine him balding and prideful and losing patience with his splintering flock, but still wanting to share a word of encouragement. And he writes, "Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, God decided through the foolishness of our proclamation to save those who believe. And now paraphrasing, we proclaim the power of a crucified Savior, utter foolishness and a stumbling block to any who think they know the exercise of power." Let me tell you that this was one of the hardest teachings of Christ to contend with for a seminarian fresh out of grad school and engineering and with ambitions for teaching or campus ministry. What do you mean the wisdom of the world is foolishness? The discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Didn't I have to do a lot of discernment to get here? I had just come off 7 years at a university that called us to, and this is a quote, "that continual and fearless sifting and winnowing by which alone the truth can be found." And the University of Wisconsin alums, you get tired of that sifting and winnowing? We heard it a lot. And yet this weak and foolish Savior is the one who keeps calling me back. In the words of writer Casper ter Kuile, we might define the Holy One as the pull toward hope, toward transformation, toward the kind of love that only vulnerability evokes. The weakness of God, he writes, is not impotence or indifference. It is simply a weakness that refuses to coerce. I said we scarcely need a sermon today because these texts just kind of preach themselves. They feel to me so strange, but so true. It's hard to imagine that a single writer, let alone a succession of them, would sit down with pen and papyrus and concoct this line of proclamation, this gospel that is so counter to the usual ways that we think about leadership and wisdom and human community. But those scraps and scribbles have endured. They have managed to gather people together and transform hearts and minds consistently and profoundly over countless generations. It's hard not to take them seriously, given what they have achieved against all odds. Besides Willem Dafoe's Jesus, the other figure that I associate with this set of readings today is St. Francis, who considered the Beatitudes to be the core proclamation of the gospel. That was just as radical in his day. Almost immediately after starting his order of poor itinerant friars, the new recruits started to rebel against Francis. They wanted wisdom. They wanted influence. They wanted the certainty of material comfort. The Benedictines get all that stuff. Why can't we have it? And so at some point, it's almost as if Francis walks away in frustration from the movement that he founded. And he travels to Egypt alongside the Fifth Crusade. Himself once a hapless soldier and prisoner of war, he is horrified by what he sees. And the story goes that he crosses enemy lines with just one Arabic-speaking companion, manages to gain an audience with the Sultan al-Malik al-Kamil. He is welcomed as a peacemaker, willing to put his body and his life on the line in the spirit of curiosity and understanding. According to the story, the Sultan not only spares his life, but grants him access to the sites of the Holy Land. This is no small gesture of goodwill when you consider what the Crusaders' mission actually was. Al-Kamil sends Francis off with the single gift that the saint would accept: an ivory horn used to make the Muslim call for prayer. You can still see this purported horn reverently displayed in Assisi. Like so many stories and symbols of St. Francis, it testifies to a reckless love that gains its power from its very foolishness. And remarkable things happen. My friends, these are days when the good news of this gospel is primed to ring out clear and true. The pearl of great price that is the spiritual lineage of Micah, of Jesus, of Paul, of Francis, and of untold others. This message can be a wellspring of hope and a clarion call to faithful action. I think that this urgent epiphany is already underway. We see it in neighbors caring for neighbors, strangers exemplifying generosity, courage, sacrifice. As Paul Simon put it, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls. Long live the crownless king. Long live his weak and foolish servants. And long live the upside-down kingdom that is always just one act of love away from slipping more fully into view. May the crucified one lead us ever onward.